Hi, everybody. Welcome back. This is John McDougall. I am the event coordinator here at Murder by the Book in Houston, and we're super excited to have our second Cozy Con panel of the day. This afternoon, we're going to be chatting about Bibliomysteries, but before we get started, I just wanted to make a couple of quick announcements. First, we are open again at the store, so if you have not come to see us lately, we reopened in October, so I hope that you will come visit us. We know a lot of people have been asking us about when we're going to be able to do in-store author events again. Everybody loves the virtual stuff, but they miss the connection of being able to meet face-to-face with authors. So I will say, make sure that you are signed up for the Murder by the Book newsletter. You can sign up for that at murderbooks.com and keep an eye on our social media stuff because we'll be making some announcements later next week about some plans for the fall. Also wanted to mention, we've got some great stuff coming up. Next Friday, I will be chatting with Kate Carlisle and Ellie Alexander about their newest releases. And then in July, on July 22nd, I'm going to be chatting with S.C. Perkins, who is a local cozy author who we're big fans of, as well as Sherry Harris and Esme Addison about their new releases. And then we just got another event set up in August. We're going to be chatting with Ellen Byron, Deborah Goldstein, Libby Klein, and I feel like there's somebody else that I'm forgetting, but lots of really great cozy stuff coming up. I also personally just launched my own cozy Instagram to kind of go with the store and be able to focus a little bit more on cozy stuff. So I'm going to drop a link to that in the comments if you haven't followed and you want to check up on new releases, what cozy stuff we've got coming up at the store. And also, if you haven't signed up for it, at the beginning of last year, we started a series of subscription boxes, and one of those is a Cozy of the Month box. So if you want me to pick out and send you a cozy once a month, you can sign up for that. You can visit that murderbythebox.com for more info about that, or we also have info about it on the Murder by the Book event page as well. If you missed our panel earlier this afternoon at 11 o'clock, we chatted with more Kensington authors. We had Daryl Wood Gerber. We also had, sorry, my brain just completely went blank. Valerie Wilson Wesley, and we also had Tracy Hall and Patrice Wilton, who write under the name Tracy Wilton, and we were also joined by Lynn Cahoon. And we had Valerie Wilson Wesley kind of in and out. She had some tech issues, but she was able to chat a little bit. So if you missed that, it is up on the store's Facebook page and YouTube channel as well. I've also created a playlist on the YouTube channel, so if you want to see all of the cozy stuff that we've done over the last year, we've got all of those recommendations and author chats all in one quick playlist. But today, as I said, we're going to be chatting about Bibliomysteries. Ellery Adams was also scheduled to meet with us this afternoon, but unfortunately, she had to go to the emergency vet with her cat, Dr. Watson. We've heard that he's sick, but he's doing better and will make it through. So we just want to send lots of love out to Dr. Watson and Ellery. She's had a hard year cat-wise, and so we are just sending her good vibes for Dr. Watson. But today, as I said, we're going to be chatting about Bibliomysteries. We're going to get started. First, we're going to bring out Valerie V.M. Burns. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
Doing well. Thanks so much for joining us.
Glad to be here.
So Valerie's most recent release is A Tourist Guide to Murder, which is the newest book in the Mystery Bookshop Series. She is the Agatha Award-nominated author of screenplays, children's books, and cozy mysteries, including the Dog Club Mysteries, the R.J. Franklin Mysteries, and the Mystery Bookshop Series. Born and raised in South Bend, Indiana, V.M. Burns currently resides in Tennessee with her poodles. She is a member of the Mystery Writers of America and a lifetime member of Sisters in Crime. Also wanted to mention, for any Sisters in Crime people, we actually have a local chapter here in Houston, and they are going to be meeting virtually tomorrow at 2 o'clock, I believe. So if you go to the Murder by the Book website, you can get more info about how to join them, and we're hoping to be able to welcome them back into the store for their meetings again soon. And next up, I'm going to bring in Maddie Day, who you may also know as Edith Maxwell. How are you today?
Hi, good, thank you.
Thanks for joining us. So her newest book is Murder at the Taffy Shop, which is the second in the Cozy Capers book group series. It came out in March. There we go. Agatha Award-winning author Maddie Day is a talented amateur chef who knows both Indiana and Cape Cod intimately. She is also a member of Sisters in Crime and the Mystery Writers of America and blogs with the Wicked Authors and at Killer Characters. She lives with her beau north of Boston, where she gardens, cooks, and devises new murderous plots. And we're excited to be joined by Krista Davis today, too. Let's bring her out. How are you today, Krista?
I'm fine. Thank you for inviting me.
Thanks for joining us. So Krista's most recent book is in the Domestic Diva series. It is The Diva Serves Forbidden Fruit, and that came out in May. And she also has a new book in the Pen and Ink series that's going to be coming out in September, and that one is called Murder Outside the Lines. And Krista Davis is the New York Times bestselling author of the Domestic Diva Mysteries and the Paws and Claws Mysteries. Several of her books have been nominated for the Agatha Award. She lives in the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia with 2 cats and a brood of dogs. Her friends and family complain about being guinea pigs for her recipes, but she notices they keep coming back for more. And as we're chatting this afternoon, for any of our viewers out there, if you have questions for any of our authors, whether it's about the series that we're talking about today or any of their previous series, please post those either in the live chat on YouTube or in the comments on Facebook, and we'll be getting to those as we chat. But to get us started today, we'll start real easy. Let's have everybody tell everybody a little bit about their Bibliomystery series and the newest book in it. Let's start with Valerie.
Okay. So my mystery series, the first book in the series is The Plot is Murder. There you go. And this features a retired school teacher named Samantha Washington. Sam and her late husband, Leon, used to dream of one day quitting their jobs and opening a mystery bookshop. When her husband passes, she realizes life is too short not to follow your dreams. So she quits her job and she opens the mystery bookshop that they always dreamed about. Well, Sam also had another dream, and that was to write British historic cozies. So every book in this series features 2 mysteries to solve. You get the mystery that Sam is trying to solve in her real life. You also get the mystery that she's writing. So there's usually a tie-in. And the latest book in the series is A Tourist Guide to Murder, where Sam goes on a research trip to England and takes a mystery lover's tour of England. And there is a murder which she needs to solve.
All right, Maddie, do you want to tell us about the newest Cozy Capers book series?
Sure. So the Cozy Capers book group is a book group in a fictional town on Cape Cod called West Ham, and they only read cozy mysteries. So it's a cozy mystery about a book group that only reads cozy mysteries. And the protagonist is Mac Almeida. She owns a bicycle 3 R's, rental, repair, and retail. There's a great biking trails on Cape Cod because it's flat. And so people rent her bikes and they buy bikes, and she sells, bright colored biking togs. And she's a member of the book group. And so the group is made up of other business people in the town and the head librarian and the town clerk. And so they work with her in various ways to help solve crimes. The first book was Murder on Cape Cod. Her family lives in town. Her father's a Unitarian minister. Her mother's an astrologer. Her half-brother works for her and is raising his little daughter by himself. And she's very family-oriented, Mac is. And she's got a very hunky boyfriend who's the town baker. So Murder at the Taffy Shop is the second book. And her best friend, who's part of the book group, Jin, owns the taffy shop, Salty Taffies, and taffy and candy and fudge and stuff. And she's actually accused of the murder in this book. And the third book, Murder at the Love Shack, will be out in November.
All right. And how about you, Krista?
Well, the Pen and Ink Mysteries, and I'm going to hold the cover up kind of close, so I hope you can tell. These are the protagonist, Flory Fox, draws coloring books. So on these covers can all be colored, and they're made with a special material that allows you to color the cover. The woman who sets up covers at Kensington thought one day, gee, wouldn't it be fun if the reader could just kind of make the cover the way the reader perceives it. So you can color the books you want the way you want, and the candles and things. And the back usually has. This is an advanced reader copy, so the back is just words, but the back is also available to be colored. And if you're one of those people who can't harm a book by putting a pen or pencil to it, you can download the cover and color it just on regular paper. And that's actually really nice too, because these are not very gel pen friendly. They're pencil friendly, and they're alcoholic pen. That always sounds so wrong. Friendly. But if you print it out on paper, then you can use any kind of coloring medium that you want. And in this book, it's Halloween. Florrie Fox not only draws coloring books, but she manages a bookstore by day because, she's not making enough just with her coloring books yet. And she manages this bookstore in Georgetown, the Georgetown section of Washington, D.C., for a very, very wealthy man. And he really could care less. He just wants to own a bookstore, so she gets to run the show. And at Halloween, they've invited a psychic to come and talk about her new book. But when she arrives, she's just completely out of sorts because she just saw a foot sticking out of a rug, and she's convinced that she witnessed a murder. But when Florrie's boyfriend, who happens to be the lovely police officer in this series, when he goes back to check, there's nothing there. There's not a drop of blood. There's just absolutely nothing there. So nobody's quite sure, did something happen? Did something not happen? And the book takes off from there.
So I wanted to say, Krista, I was wearing this shirt Thursday night at a cross-genre writers group. We got together in person for the first time for a potluck at the beach. And one of the people said, "Oh, I wish I had my colored pens. I want to color in your shirt."
That's, I have to look for that. We'll talk.
Yeah.
We'll talk. I'll send you one.
Thank you.
So Michelle, who is a publicist at Kensington, who's behind the scenes, says that, Krista, that Sharpie color markers work best to color in on your covers.
They might. I didn't have a lot of luck with the Sharpies. I did have a lot of luck with, there's a store that sells all kinds of household goods. It's like Michael's, but it's not Michael's. Anyway, they have the alcoholic pens. They're a little bit pricier, but they worked really beautifully on it. And I have used just plain coloring pencils on the covers, and they work really well too. But it's the alcoholic base that you need. Some of the gels just kind of smear, and that's not. But the good thing is, if you do smear something, it just wipes right off.
So Valerie, before we get into book stuff, Gail wants to know, do you have miniature or toy or standard poodles?
I have toys. My sister had and the poodles that are on the covers, those were my dogs. Oh. So in the book, they're Snickers and Oreo are the dogs' names. In real life, it was Coco and Cash were my dogs. So I just, when my publisher asked if I would be okay using my dogs on the cover, I thought, of course, so it just brings a smile to my face every time I look at these covers and I get to see my babies on the cover.
Awesome. So since we've talked about covers, Maddie, do you want to tell us a little bit about your cover process? Do you have any input for covers?
Oh, sure. I always have input, but I don't seem to have veto power. So my editor asked me way early on, very early on, I might not have even finished writing the book, what are your ideas for cover? And I have learned I maintain a Pinterest board as I go along. So they've really come up with the Cozy Capers covers more on their own, but in my country store mysteries, I always give them ideas, and then I do it in words, but I send a link to my Pinterest board to my editor, and he can pass that along to the art department. So I had a book a couple of books ago, I think maybe Strangled Eggs and Ham. I can't remember which one it was. And there was a bluegrass festival going on in southern Indiana. And my protagonist had opened her B&B rooms. So I sent pictures of B&B rooms and banjos and a covered bridge, and they decided to do one of the B&B rooms. And on those covers, they always have my their version of my tuxedo cat, my leg tuxedo cat Birdie. And then this one, there's a lot of graters, no greater crime. This is a book comes out in August, so there's graters and the cat. So those always have the cat. They do, but at a certain point, by the time I see the cover they've come up with, if something's wrong, it's too late.
Mm-hmm.
And one time they did a cover, I neglected to tell them what month did it take place in, like late November, and they drew it with green trees and green grass outside. I said, no, it's too late. Nobody seemed to notice.
So one of the things I think that's interesting for all of you is that you all kind of approach kind of the bibliomystery thing kind of from a different perspective. You know, Valerie, your books are set in a mystery bookstore, which there aren't very many specific mystery bookstores in the country anymore. You know, Maddie, your character doesn't own a bookstore, but she runs a book group. And Krista, you know, you have the coloring book element and your character manages bookstores. So can you guys talk a little bit about kind of where you came up with the idea and the hook for the series and what made you want to go that route? Let's start with Valerie.
Absolutely. So the reason that Samantha Washington dreams of quitting her job and owning a mystery bookshop is because that's my dream. So one day I always dreamed of, you know, quitting my job. Not that I don't like my job, but quitting my job and just being surrounded by mysteries and having access to mysteries all the time, and being able to get books that are out of print and not having to, you know, drive all over town looking for books. And so, or go on Amazon, I guess, or an indie bookstore like Murder by the Book. But that was my dream. So that was hers. My dream was also to write British historic cozy mysteries. So that's where I got the idea of writing the Mystery Bookshop series.
All right. And how about you, Maddie?
I had tossed a couple of proposals to my agent, who passed them on to my editor for another series, and my editor didn't like them. So I finally said, what would you like to see? And he said something about a book group or a book club. Mm-hmm. So then I thought, I do spend time on Cape Cod, around the area where this book is set. I thought, well, Cape Cod, everybody loves Cape Cod. And then I thought, oh, they only read cozy mysteries. It just came into my, you know, so the book group, so the book group was John Scone idea, but making it a cozy book group, cozy only, was my idea, and he loved it. He thought that was great. And readers seem to love it too.
Awesome. Yeah. And how about you, Krista?
Well, first, let me just interject something that's totally off topic, but when Valerie described her books with two murders in each, with two mysteries in each one, I did that once and learned my lesson. It was so hard because you have to make sure that the reader isn't confused, you know, and I had a mystery event going on in the book. So there was a mystery plus the other mystery. I thought, I will never do this again. So I admire you. Just know, I know how hard that is to do. Well, my story is a little bit different here because I was writing the Domestic Diva Mysteries and the Closet Clause Mysteries. And one day the phone rang and my agent said, I have something to tell you, but you have to promise you don't mention a word to anybody else. And I thought, wow, you know, how can I tell that? How can I turn that down? That I was dying to hear what it was. And she said, we are talking about doing a mystery series where the covers can be colored. And it was my editor who was doing that. And so they wanted to know if I was interested. And before she told me what it was, I'm not joking, the word no was just poised on my lips. Really, I was determined I was going to say no because I was already writing too. And as soon as she said, you can color the covers, I said, yes, 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 bring it on. So they told me kind of what they had in mind, and I wrote up a couple of chapters and sent them to them, and they said, yes, this is great, keep going. And that was that. And let me just say that 2 weeks after I signed the contract, my mother fell and broke her wrist, my elderly mother, and moved in with me. So there was no time for writing 3 books anymore, and my life was sort of chaos. So books haven't come out exactly when they should have, but I think I'm back on schedule now.
I think it's great, you know, coloring books were, that was like such a moment, even at Murder by the Book, you know, we're mostly mysteries, but I mean, we were just bringing in coloring books and we couldn't keep them in stock for so long. I mean, now for us, it's been jigsaw puzzles because of the pandemic, but like, that was like just such a moment with adult coloring books where they were everywhere and like every TV property had them. And it was just crazy how it blew up. So we were so excited to see how quickly a publisher was able to kind of jump on that. Because, you know, a lot of times by time a trend happens and you can write a book to it, then everybody's moved on. So it was great to see how quick that they were on the ball with that.
Yeah, they were. And it never occurred to me. I thought it was just so brilliant. How could I say no? You know,
Yeah.
so I grabbed it when I could.
So you all write several different series. So how does that impact kind of plotting? Have you ever started something thinking you were potentially going to use this plot or this idea for one story and one character, then realize, oh wait, no, I'm writing this should work better for a different series? Has that ever happened, or do you kind of know, like, no, this is going to be this series, this is going to be this series? Let's start with Valerie.
So I haven't, and I think it's because the characters are very distinct. So I know Sam. I know the town, North Harbor, Michigan, even though it's fictional, it's based on a real place. And so I kind of, and her sidekick being her grandmother, Nana Joe, and the girls from the retirement village, I know their, you know, their personalities. I know what they like. I know what would work with them. And the same thing being true with my R.J. Franklin series, which is set in, you know, Indiana. And then the Dog Club series was, you know, it starts in Indiana and the protagonist moves to Chattanooga, Tennessee. And that's because I moved from Indiana to Tennessee. So it's very easy for me to stay with the plots for those characters because they tend to be related to, you know, either their personalities or the setting.
And how about you, Maddie?
I don't mix them up when I'm writing them. I don't think I've had that experience you described because I do my best to write one book at a time, one series at a time.
Yeah.
You know, that blows up when I'm getting copy edits from another book while I'm writing the first draft of another series. And I just put down my first draft, do the copy edits because they're due in 2 weeks, send them in, and then go back to my other series. But I don't mix them up as I'm writing them because, as Valerie said, they're so real to me. Like they're just, and I remember asking Sheila Connolly that question years ago, and she said, well, they're all real. They're all real. How could I possibly mix them up? And that's true. And one of my series has been a historical series, so that's, you know, 1888. I'm not going to mix them up with my contemporaries. So it's not really a problem to write 3 or more books a year. They're just real.
And how about you, Krista?
No, I don't mix them up. They, as you've said, they all have different locations. They have different characters. And so I just go to different places when I'm writing them. However, I do get ideas and, you know, I'll be writing and think, oh, wait, this should go in the dog book because this is just, you know, so all about dogs. And so I make a note to look at that for the next dog, you know, Paws and Claws book. And then I continue on my way. So I do sometimes think of something and think, oh no, that's all wrong for this, but it would be great for that. And I just make a note and go on.
Mm-hmm.
So what drew y'all to Cozy Mysteries and wanting to write Cozy Mysteries? Did you read them before, or did you start writing something like when I talked with Ellen Byron for her series, she had said like she had just been writing something and finally an editor, somebody pointed out to her, like, you're writing a cozy mystery. And she's like, oh, I didn't know what that was. So did you guys come to them from having loved Cozy Mysteries, or was it something that you kind of discovered that you were writing as you were writing? Let's go the other way and start with Krista.
I always read Cozy Mysteries. And I read all kinds of mysteries. I don't read much outside of mysteries. I hate to say that, but I do read all kinds of mysteries. And when I started writing something that was probably closer to a conventional mystery. And I sent it to an agent. This was actually like manuscript number 6 that, the first 5 didn't see the light of day. So I sent it to an agent, and she wrote back to me and she said, well, here's the problem with this manuscript, but have you ever considered writing a cozy? And I thought, well, gee, I've read lots of cozies. Why not? So I switched gears and started writing cozies, and that was 10, 12 years ago.
Yeah.
And how about you, Maddie?
Yeah, I read cozies. I mean, I cut my teeth on my mother's Agatha Christie's, all of them. And then I was reading sort of in the probably mid to late 80s and early 90s. I just got really tired of reading books by men with male protagonists who were always talking about women's boobs and legs. But when I read Sarah Paretsky or Sue Grafton, I didn't have to read that stuff. And then I started reading the China Bales series and the Goldie,
Diane Davidson,
and Catherine Hall Page. And so those are foodie cozies as well. I went, oh, I can do that. And so when my younger son went off to kindergarten, and he's now 32, I had a small organic farm, and I started writing a cozy set on a small organic farm, and that ended up being the first book in my local foods mysteries that came out in 2013. So yeah, I love cozies. I read maybe women's fiction outside of mysteries, but mostly I read crime fiction, and most of it is cozy or historical.
Yeah. And how about you, Valerie?
Yeah, just like the others, I love cozy mysteries. I've read them since I was small and started with Nancy Drew, and I am a huge Agatha Christie fan. And so I read a lot of cozies. I do read other genres, but I read a lot of cozies. And over the years, I had this long growing list of, I wish there was a cozy mystery about. I would love to read a cozy mystery that had, and that list just kept growing and growing and growing. And eventually I'm like, nobody's writing that. Maybe I should try. And so that's kind of how I got started. And, Krista, it's interesting when you mentioned about how hard it is with the 2 mysteries in every book. I agree. It is challenging. And I actually started, it seemed like a good idea because I'm a reader. And I thought, I'd love to read a book that had 2 mysteries and I didn't think about it from how difficult it would be to plot that whole thing out. And then once I got into it, I was like, what was I thinking? This is crazy. It's hard enough to do 1, and I'm trying to do 2 in every book. But, it was something that I wanted to read. So that's what I decided to write, are the books that I would want to read.
I don't write like a mystery within a mystery. But I've told reader groups, if you ever read one of my books where there are 2 murders, it's because I was hopelessly stuck in the middle, and I thought, well, I'll kill somebody else up. Sometimes it's the same villain, sometimes it's somebody else. But it's not like a whole mystery within a whole mystery. Excuse me.
My problem there with that book, and it just seemed like so much fun, a mystery weekend. Oh boy. But how do you say, the challenge was separating the mystery weekend clues from the real murder clues. And of course, the people who were visiting for the murder mystery weekend kept thinking that the real clues were for their mystery weekend, and that the dead person wasn't really dead, and so yeah, it was a little bit difficult to do. And I thought, boy, I'll never do that again. But congratulations to you, and I'm going to get those mysteries and read them because I'm really curious.
Well, thank you. It actually, I think one of the things that helps is that what she's writing are British historic cozies, so it kind of helps to separate from the traditional contemporary mystery that she is trying to solve. And there is a parallel between the 2. And I want it there to be. I want that she's writing and that helps her kind of sort through everything in her mind. So as she's writing this, then it gives her the clues that she needs to help her solve what's going on in her real life.
I love it. I love it. Yeah.
Thank you.
So it seems in mysteries there tends to be two schools. There is you have the murder by the end of chapter 1. You already, like, the victim is dead at the end of the chapter, or authors let you kind of get to know the victim before they die and you get the body like 50 or 60 pages in. So where do you guys fall on that, or do you vary with your books? Let's start with Krista. Do you like to get the body in right off the bat, or do we get to know the victim first?
You know, I honestly don't even think about that anymore. That's a terrible thing to say. I've written so many books, I guess, that I just start writing. I just start. And sometimes the body falls on page, 70, and I think once on page 100. But and Sheila Connolly was notorious because she had one where there was no body. I think nobody ever died in the whole book. So, yeah, I really don't even concentrate that. I know in the beginning, and they recommend this, and I think it's really good for new writers, that the body really should fall by the 3rd chapter. And I think that makes sense because you have to get something going that's really interesting in the book. So mine often start with something else that I hope is interesting and will hold people until someone dies. However, having said that, in the 4th book in the Pen and Ink series, which it has a title, A Colorful Scheme, which I'm writing now, I think that the body will appear in probably about the end of chapter 3 or beginning of chapter 4.
I just realized in my Cozy Capers series that the body falls in the 1st chapter in all 4 books. So I'm about to turn in book 4, Murder in a Cape Cottage. And I didn't plan it that way, but that's just how it ended up. But otherwise, it varies a little bit. But in book 3, Murder at the Lobster Shack, so in each of these books, the book group is reading a cozy, and actually reading a Kensington cozy. I decided to do it that way. And in book 3, Murder at the Lobster Shack, they're reading Barb Ross's, I think it's Fogged In. Well, it's the one that begins, Julia, there's a body in the walk-in. Like, this is what the Gus, the cook downstairs, is calling up to her. So in Murder at the Lobster Shack, there's a body in the walk-in. And I have my 2 characters who are both in the Mac and her friend Tilia, who are both in the book group, go, oh, it's just like in the book. So we circle back to the cozy mystery they're reading. It's not a whole mystery. And usually they're so busy solving the crime that they don't have time to read the book, and they put it off for another week. And Krista, you're one of your Colleen Crooker is in the 4th book.
Oh,
yeah,
wow!
That's the book I feature in that.
Thank you.
Murder in a Cape Cottage. She goes and buys a coloring book, but then she's too busy to use it.
Well, you can tell her that the clues are on the cover, that all these little elements around here are all clues.
Oh, great. Okay. Well, we'll work that in. I haven't turned it in yet.
And how about you, Valerie?
I don't know that I've necessarily tried to have it in the 1st chapter. I try to have it close to the beginning, but not necessarily. Sorry, one of my poodles. Not necessarily in the 1st chapter, but usually in the first few chapters.
So Missy wants to know in the question, she says, is there a book on writing that any of you would recommend for potential cozy writers or just writers in general? Does anybody have a recommendation?
Yes.
I'm going to not mention a book, but I'm going to mention the Guppies chapter of Sisters in Crime, which is just an unbelievable place to get started. They have critique groups, and they have people who can answer almost any question that you have. I remember very well standing in a Borders bookstore and trying to find out what font to use in the script. I mean, it's such a fundamental thing. And at the time, we weren't on computers as much as we are now. You could probably find that now. But any question that you have, there's always a Guppy with an answer, and I highly recommend them.
I agree. I'm still a Guppy. They haven't kicked me out. So I would recommend Hallie Efron's Writing and Selling Your Mystery.
Oh, Hallie is excellent. Yeah.
She's a superb teacher, and she's got worksheets, and it's just a really excellent book.
Yeah, I would agree with both of those. I've read Hallie Efron's book. I've also, I'm a member of the Guppies, and I'm on the board for Sisters in Crime, so I highly recommend. You don't have to be a published author, and they have a lot of podcasts and webinars, things to really help if you're, on practically everything, and they're free to members. And the membership itself is not very expensive, and you have access to so much information. So I think, joining one of those writer groups actually will be really, really helpful.
Awesome.
I'll just throw in here. It's amazing how you can be making this incredibly huge mistake in a manuscript and you don't recognize it until you see someone else do it. And then you're like, what was I thinking? How could I have been doing that same thing? It's an incredible thing to do. So I'm all behind writers groups. But as Daryl always says, remember to be kind.
Yes, always.
So I've dropped a link to the Sisters in Crime Guppies online chapter in the comments on Facebook and YouTube, and I also dropped a link to her Hallie Efron's book if anybody wants to check that out. And like I mentioned at the beginning, we recently just got a Houston chapter of Sisters in the Crime, which we were super excited for. I think they got to host maybe 2 of their Sunday meetings in the store before the pandemic hit last year, but they've still been going strong online. So if you visit murderbooks.com, their next meeting is tomorrow, and they've got all the info about how you can sign up for their Zoom stuff if anybody's local. And we're hoping to be able to, but by the end of the year, get them meeting back in the store again. So one of the things that I love about Cozies is I think that they're such a great place to be able to also deal with real world issues, especially since so many of them take place in small towns. You're really able to focus on issues that small towns face, whether it's, residents being pushed out because of tourism or things like that. I also think that they're really great because you get to see women kind of get to take back their power. A lot of times it starts with, she's either gone through a divorce or there's some kind of loss, so she goes back to her hometown. Or like Valerie said, her characters always had this dream of opening up a bookstore, so she gets to do that. So there are all of these places where you kind of get to see and like you said, Maddie, it's not just, men writing about women's breasts and things like that. You get to see these women kind of take control of their own lives, or you get to see them not tackle because they're still kind of done in a light way, but, approach issues that women face or that people face in small towns. So why do you think Cozies are such a great place for people to be able to talk about those issues? Let's start with Krista.
Well, I think it's sort of a safe place. And the way that we write generally doesn't pitch it's not a hardball. We don't pitch something and write, this is what you must do, or this is how you must act. It's more of a side issue where the reader, I think, can determine for him or herself, wow, look at this situation and this is how it should or shouldn't go. And maybe it happens that way in the book, or maybe it doesn't. But I think it's just a gentler place to see some of those things happen.
Mm-hmm. I would agree. Yeah, I would agree. And I mean, we have to tread lightly because one reason people are reading Cozies is that the world out there is very scary and messy, particularly in the last year. And people don't want to be reminded of how scary and messy it is. Still, there are those issues. So I'm writing about a coastal town in the Cozy Capers, and there are local residents who can't afford to live in town, who are using the food kitchen, the free food dinners. And those are real issues that I have tried to kind of gently work into the book. And I think that's, it's that we can do it gently. But it's also part of life that there are people have issues and there are problems. If I can work this in now, I will say that my characters I do my best to have all kinds of people in my books. So there will be gay characters, and there will be people of all different skin colors and ethnicities, and I think some readers get a little upset by that, but I'm not going to not write about all the different kinds of people that are in the world. So I know I've lost a couple of readers by having an openly gay couple in my books, and I just have to lose those readers because I'm not going to not write about those people. So.
Yeah.
I think that I would agree with what has been said. I think that there are issues that are just part of life. There are things that are going on, and I think to ignore those is foolish. I think that you have a platform here and you have an opportunity. And so, I also agree that with Krista that we're writing cozy mysteries, so we're not going to beat you over the head with a specific social issue, but it's an opportunity to present things. And with my Mystery Bookshop series, for example, she's writing about a British historic cozy mystery that takes place in between right before World War II. So, I don't feel like I could accurately, write a mystery right before World War II without bringing up some of those topics. But hopefully you're not going to be beaten over the head with it. So, and also with my next book that comes out in November is Killer Words. And, it deals with some corruption with the local police. But, it's also not going to be something that, I hope that anybody is going to go out picketing about or, having a huge, issue with. It's something that happens and it's real, but it's also taken, and our point is we're also writing mysteries. So we can't lose sight of our focus, which is we're writing a mystery and we're going to stay focused on that task. So readers can get a glimpse of, okay, so this issue exists. They can make their own decisions on how they, want to believe one way or the other. But we're going to present a topic and then we'll see, we're not going to get too far away from putting our clues and our red herrings and making sure that our amateur sleuth solves the crime, which is why, people are picking that up.
Yeah, the story has to come first.
Yeah.
The story always has to come first.
Yeah, so Debbie just mentioned in the comment, she says, what types of issues are addressed in cozies? I haven't noticed. Am I a poor reader? Debbie, you're not a poor reader. I think that speaks well to authors, as they all mentioned, how it's just another level of the story or a layer to it. You're picking it up to read about the murder itself. But one of the examples that I've been using a lot is I've been reading my way through the Leslie Meyer, Lucy Stone series, and she has issued, like Maddie mentioned, mentioning, residents in town not being able to afford to live there anymore because, things are getting renovated for vacation, things like that. She's tackled issues like soldiers coming home with PTSD or drug addiction, things like that. So I think it's a testament to the way that cozy writers are able to use that light touch to touch on those issues. And maybe you don't notice it, but I think subconsciously you're probably there. I think that's a testament to kind of the genre itself and how it's able to tackle stuff like that. So Valerie, you mentioned peppering in things like red herrings and being able to solve mysteries. So I'm curious about writing process a little bit. As you guys are writing, do you sit down with an outline? Do you know what those clues are going to be? Or do you kind of finish the story, then you have to go back in and maybe insert some of those? Let's start with Valerie.
So I am a pantser. I am not a plotter. I aspire to be a plotter, someone who writes a very detailed outline and they know where all their clues are and all their red herrings and they sprinkle it in and it's wonderful. I've tried that. It doesn't work for me. So generally I'll start out with an idea and I know, who I should say, I think I know who the victim is. That can offer, I know who the victim is. I don't always know who the killer is, and that can change as I'm going through the story. sometimes there are big surprises. The characters take me in unusual places. I remember writing one of my stories and, the protagonist writes, "Man, I didn't see that coming." And that's because, man, I did not see that coming. I don't know where that came from. The great thing about writing a story within a story is usually that's where Samantha is going to now start working on her British historic cozy, which is going to help her sift through, and know how to, to figure this out. And so I don't have a detailed outline. Generally, when I get finished with my first draft, as I'm going through, as the story develops, I'm like, okay, now I know where it's going, and I need to remember to add in a clue for this, and I need to add in a false clue about this somewhere, and I'll just leave a note to myself, and then through the revision process, I'll go back and sprinkle those in so that hopefully I have a good balance between the real clues and the false clues, so that the reader is not, like, oh man, I saw that coming, 200 pages ago. Mm-hmm. And then, we can hopefully get to the resolution at the same time.
So as a reader, Valerie, as you're reading something for pleasure, are you the type of reader who is trying to figure it out as it happens? Or are you the type who just wants to be surprised and when the killer's revealed, you're like, oh, I didn't see that?
Oh no, I'm trying to figure it out. And I'm like, man, they fit 2 sentences talking about the mud on the bottom of their pants. That has to be important. And I'm trying to figure it out. And then when I get to the end, I'm like, woohoo, I was right. Or, darn, I didn't see that coming. And then I got to go back and backtrack and especially if they stump me, because then I want to reread it and figure out where those clues were that I missed and how they wove them in. And so, I want to try and figure it out along with, and so I get impatient because I'm like, okay, I think I know who it is, and I got to read faster so I can see if I'm right.
Yeah.
How about you, Maddie?
I'm like Valerie. My editor wants a synopsis of the book before I start writing it. Mm-hmm. And he would love to have 10 single-spaced pages. And the most he's ever gotten is 5 double-spaced pages, and it about killed me. I don't want to know what's happening in my book until maybe 3 scenes ahead. So I'll be writing along into the headlights, and I'll have a thought, oh, this could happen next, and that, and that. So I will set up those scenes. I write in Scrivener, so I set those up. But that's all. That's all the plotting I do, really. But if I do get it all muddled in the middle, when I get muddled in the middle, which is every book, and I've written 30 books now, I'll go and I'll look at that synopsis I sent to John. I'll go, oh, I was going to have that happen. That's a good idea. Let's do that. So that it does help a little bit. But I just think I would be bored stiff if I knew what was going to happen and all I have to do is write the words. No, that's just not how I work. And it's been working for me, so I'm not gonna change what I'm doing.
I totally agree, and we have the same editor at Kensington, and he would like a detailed outline. And just like Maddie, he gets about 5 or 6 double-spaced pages from me, and when I know is what's going to happen, I'm like, okay, and then Sam did this, and this happened, and then he might get a page and a half about her dress or the sunset or, it was a lovely day. They decided to walk on the beach, right. So I think he knows that I'm fudging, but I'm like, this is what I know.
Yeah.
What I've learned to do that I need to do is after I've written the book, I have to update that synopsis with what actually happened and send that to them because that's what they do their cover and publicity and all that stuff from. So I do try to remember to do that at the end of each book, give him the actual synopsis.
Yeah.
Now that I know what happened. What about you, Krista?
Well, I'm really glad to hear this because I always am the only one who doesn't, plan everything out in detail. And I've come to the conclusion, and this is kind of what I'm hearing from you two, I amuse myself by seeing where the story goes. I think that's fun. And if I know where it's going to go, well, that's no fun anymore. And, I do have to know at the very beginning what happened in terms of who is the killer and what is his motive. It's subject to change, a little bit, but basically I do need to know why this murder has happened. And I go through the event in my head. It's never on paper, but just in my head, what exactly happened that day or that evening, so that I understand what went wrong, because that's crucial. There's never a perfect murder. And if I understand that somebody saw him, or, that he dropped something or whatever, then I know where I'm kind of going with that.
I really love the analogy of that, Maddie, that you mentioned, and I've heard other writers mention that too, kind of the headlight style of writing, where you it's kind of a mix of both, where you have sort of an idea where the story is going and you're able to kind of see. I think that's great, because, I think a lot of people, they hear the question plotter or pantser and think kind of writers are either one way or the other, but it sounds like kind of everybody's kind of a combination of both. And I really like that headlight analogy. So Lindsay asks, Valerie, so you said since your characters always wanted to write British historical cozies, do you have a favorite British series?
Oh my God, yes. I love the Emily Brightwell. She writes The Inspector and Mrs. Jeffries. I think it's just Mrs. Jeffries now. There are about 35 books in this series. So if you like a series, that's a nice, long, flowing one. So that's one of my favorites. I'm also fond of, it's not really cozy, but I like Susan Elliott McNeil's Maggie Hope series. And I'm a huge Agatha Christie fan, as I mentioned. So I love Miss Marple. Love Miss Marple. I love Miss Seton Mysteries. They were originally by Herring Carvick, and I think they have new authors, and they all have an HT as the author for that series.
Have you read Maisie Dobbs? I'm reading my way straight through Maisie Dobbs right now with Jacqueline Winspear. Fabulous.
It's on my to-be-read mountain.
Yeah.
They're big favorites at the store. Our McKenna, the store owner, has a dog, and the dog is named Maisie Dogs after Maisie Dobbs. So
Nice.
So Maddie, let's continue the reading theme. So what's something that you've read lately, or who are some of your favorite authors?
I just read Sujata Masi's latest, the Bombay Prince, the third one in her. Help me out here.
Praveen
Mystery. Yeah, the 1920s Indian female lawyer. Fabulous series. And I'm reading another Maisie Dobbs right now. And I just hate that question because I always draw a blank. I have so many books down there on my coffee table, but I read my friends. I read the Wicked Authors books. Every time, the pile rises faster than it gets diminished. And then there's library books.
Yeah, we're super excited. So we'll be doing a virtual event with Susan Elliott McNeil in a couple weeks for her new book. And we're also going to be chatting with Sujata Masi. And actually, Jacqueline Winspear is going to be interviewing Sujata like July 12th or something like that. So we're super excited about that too. How about you, Krista?
I always hate that question because I have so many author friends. And I know that if I start saying who my favorite authors are, I'm going to leave somebody out. Somebody's going to be really upset with me. So I usually don't mention them at all. But I did catch the first presentation. So I knew this question was coming, and I jotted down two that I read recently that I really like. And they're both first books for these authors. The first one is A Side of Murder by Amy Pershing, which takes place in Cape Cod and is really wonderful. And the other one that I got such a big kick out of was Mimi Lee Gets a Clue. And that it's absolutely hysterical. The mother in that book deserves her own series. She's so funny. So if you need a good laugh, definitely Mimi Lee.
And so that
I just thought of one that I did, another debut author. I read Mia Manansala's
so good.
Fabulous. Really great. Really great.
And so Jennifer Chow, who wrote Mimi Lee Gets a Clue, is the other author in the August Cozy event that I didn't mention.
Oh, great.
So that's going to be in August. It's going to be Jennifer Chow, Deborah Goldstein, Libby Klein, and Ellen Byron. So and Lucy Burdett. So that's coming up as well.
Oh, Lucy's terrific too. She's a friend of ours. We love Lucy.
Yeah. Oh, can I mention, John, in my intro, you said I blogged with a Killer Characters. Actually, the Killer Characters blog is no more, but I switched over to Mystery Lover's Kitchen, which Krista was a long time, maybe a founding member of, and just
I founded it. So
yes.
I'm gone now. I've cooked I've cooked more recipes than any living person except the professionals. So I'm still doing recipes in my books, but they're taking up so much time. So I'm out.
I took over Sheila Connolly's place last year after we lost her, and I'm going to stick it out for a while.
I think, in the beginning, each of us had one day a week, and it's amazing how fast you go through the few recipes that you make on a regular basis, and then you start having to create, and that's really time consuming to do.
Yes. Even every other week is time consuming.
It is time consuming. It is.
So, Krista, Susan wants to know, who is your favorite character in the Diva series and why?
I have a really bad feeling that Susan is one of my old college roommates, and she wants me to say Nina Reed Norwood because she's Reed. Three of my roommates, when I was writing the first book, I think I just made up a sidekick for Sophie, and when I got to that, so silly, this sounds like something out of a movie, but they were all here and the lights went out. The power went out. All of our plants went out. It was dark. So they said, well, read us the first chapter of your book. And I thought, oh gosh. Okay, so I did. And then I got to the character who's the sidekick, and they all screamed, no, it has to be one of us. And I said, well, it can't be any of you because the other two would be upset. So they said, never mind. They went off in a little corner. I was cooking, of course. And they went off and they came back and they had taken their middle names, Nina Reed Norwood, and that was the character's name. They decided she was from North Carolina and that her father had been in the furniture industry, and she was married and she drove a Jaguar and she played tennis and she rescued animals. And that's Nina Reed Norwood to this day. And so I am pretty sure that was the Susan who's asking that question.
Awesome. And Maddie, so Gail wants to know, what town in Cape Cod did you set your series in?
I made up a town called Westham because there's an Eastham on Cape Cod, but there isn't a Westham. But it's it's kind of modeled on Falmouth. So I rent a little Quaker retreat cottage a couple times a year in the off season in West Falmouth. So that's the area I know the best. So it's pretty much modeled on Falmouth, but it's completely fictional.
All right. So before we head out this afternoon, Valerie, you already mentioned that you've got Killer Words coming up, but let's have everybody talk about kind of what their next book is. Let's start with you, Valerie.
Okay. So actually, I just got ARCs yesterday for the newest book in the Mystery Bookshop Series. This is Killer Words. This will be book 7 in the series, and this comes out in the end of November, I believe.
Awesome. And how about you, Maddie?
So No Greater Crime comes out in August, and that's the 9th country store mystery. And Murder at the Lobster Shack, which I don't have physical copies of yet, comes out in November. And so that's the next year.
And Krista?
And for me, it's Murder Outside the Lines. I never can get this straight, which is the third pen and ink mystery. It is a Halloween mystery coming out September 28th. And it's not too creepy, but it's got a little creepy crawly stuff going on for Halloween.
Awesome. Okay, so we had one more question pop up, so we'll let this be our last one. But so Nancy wants to know, do you guys write every day, or do you have a certain number of pages? So as an inspiring writer, she would like to know kind of what your process is. How about you, Valerie?
So I try to write every day. I set a weekly goal of 7,500 to 10,000 words, which if you break that down to about 1,000 words a day, then it's not too overwhelming. And if I have a day where the words aren't flowing, then I don't worry about it because I can make it up later on in the week.
How about you, Maddie?
I write every day. I usually don't write on Sundays. I'm a Quaker, and I'm going to go sit in silent meeting. And if I've been working on a book in the morning, you know, I'm working on my book. I'm sitting there in worship. But I do. This is my day job, so this is what I write every day. And if I'm writing first draft, I set myself 1,500 words a day. And so, you know, I can write a first draft in under 6 weeks with that schedule.
And how about you, Krista?
I write every day too. There are days when I do no writing at all because, you know, life takes place and you just have to take the dog to the vet and buy the groceries and, you know, do other things. But mostly I do write every day. I don't set a daily goal. For some reason that doesn't really work for me, but I do set a weekly goal, which is okay. It makes me feel better because that way if I didn't get much done the day before, okay, I can make it up the next day and still be on track by the end of the week. So that's how I do it.
Awesome. So thank you everybody for joining us. So just to recap, if you missed any part of this chat, once we are done, Facebook and YouTube will archive it. You'll also be able to go back and watch the one that we did earlier at 11 or any of the other virtual events that we have done in the last year. I dropped a link early in the comments. You can visit murderbooks.com to order copies of any of the books. Kensington has sent us some cool swag bags to go with them. So if you order a book from any of the authors, you will get one of those. So we have been chatting with Valerie V.M. Burns, Maddie Day, and Krista Davis. As I mentioned, unfortunately, Ellery Adams wasn't able to join us. But if you want to hear her talk about the most recent book in her Secret Book Scone Society event, we chatted with her when it came out in January. So that video is also up on the Facebook and YouTube channel. Also wanted to send a big thank you to Michelle and Larissa at Kensington for helping us get this set up, for being so supportive of Murder by the Book and Cozies and being able to do these virtual events. They've been really wonderful and it's been a joy to get to work with them more in the last year as we've been doing these virtual events. And like I said before, we can't wait to keep doing this stuff once we're able to do in-store stuff. So ladies, thank you so much for joining me this afternoon. You guys go enjoy the rest of your Saturday, and we'll see you soon.
Great to see you
Thank
all.
you.
Thank you, John.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.